All right, hello and welcome to the EndurHaus podcast. I have a very special guest, Naria, who is a registered dietitian and she focuses on digestive health. And so we're going to talk about some interesting things with nutrition and digestive system and things like that. So welcome to the podcast. Glad to have you.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm super excited.
Awesome, awesome. So tell me a little bit more about how you got into being a registered dietitian and why you focused on kind of digestive health and things like that.
Yeah. So growing up, I actually grew up with obesity. I had over 14, 15 surgeries on my legs. So I couldn't walk, I couldn't do much. And even when I could, I didn't want to. Moving forward to teenage years, 16 years old, I just found myself extremely obese and unhealthy. And it was very uncomfortable. Anyone who's obese knows it's very uncomfortable. And I realized I didn't know anything about food. And it was a horrible experience emotionally and physically. And I decided, okay, what can I do? Let me start working out. Let me do all these things. And I think at 18 years old, I met my first dietitian. And that's where I was like, okay, I wonder how it would be to be a dietitian and learn all the things about nutrition and health. So I started to pursue that journey. And how I got into specifically the digestive system, I saw the need. There was so many patients that I had during my clinical experience, even my rotations as a dietitian, that I felt, okay, does everyone have to be on all these digestive medications like the PPIs, omeprazole, Trulance, all these things? Or is there a different way? And I heard a lot of naturopathic doctors talk about functional medicine, and that sparked curiosity. And after that, here we are today.
That's so cool. I think that's brilliant, especially focusing on what you're seeing as a need and then pursuing that is just brilliant. So what are some of the first signs of someone that maybe they're not aware that they would need your help slash, need help with their digestive system that people should look out for?
I think a lot of the symptoms are those sneaky things that people tend to connect to aging. Kind of like, oh, I'm having reflux, but it's because I'm getting older. Or, oh, I'm bloated, but it's again because I'm older or I ate this. No, all those are actually little signs. It's those little signs that start to sneak up on people with the bloating, even brain fog, fatigue, all those things. Those are signs of your body's trying to tell you something and you're not figuring it out. You need to
Mm.
figure it out or it could get worse.
Interesting. And what are some of the things that like people most benefit from when they get that stuff sorted out, like their digestive system and things like that? Like
Oh,
what are the benefits that people experience when they figure that out?
I I think a lot of it is just feeling like your old self again, having
Mm.
energy again, not feeling fatigued all the time, being able to even like when it comes to physical activity and performance, I think that's huge because many times you're feeling fatigued, you're having the brain fog, and that is going to impact how you perform with whatever physical activity you're doing, even how you're going to show up with your family. So I think the one of the first things is okay, the symptoms I was having before, they weren't normal and they weren't part of aging. I'm starting to feel more energy, and because I have more energy or I don't have those digestive issues like bloating, I can actually squat better and I could do more running and so forth. I don't have to be scared of going to the bathroom.
Yeah, totally. That totally makes sense. What is like one thing that you see most common? So I'll ask you kind of it's a two part. What is one thing you see most people doing wrong for their digestive system? And then what's like one simple trick that helps digestive system like really quickly?
I think one thing that I see a lot of people do is guess what their body needs. So let's say they're having reflux. Sometimes they just go on Amazon or somewhere super random and they hear someone say, "This is a five-star product, let me try it." But when it comes to the digestive system, it's usually sometimes not that complicated and sometimes not that simple. So what the number one thing is guessing. That is huge. When it comes to if you're starting to feel a certain symptom, especially in the digestive realm, what can you do that's super simple? Take a step back and connect with, are you having those scheduled, balanced meals that are connecting to your physical activity plans? Are you fueling your body correctly? How are those kind of connecting in that? Eating slowly, being mindful when you're chewing, not being on the phone or on the computer, chewing and doing that. taking it slow, just doing the basic things of life, having those 3 meals, making sure they're balanced, making sure that you're working on your circadian rhythm. As simple as they may seem, I'm going to tell you, for so many people, before they go to supplements and start the guessing game, do this, because this may just resolve a lot of those issues.
Interesting. I haven't heard much about using a screen at the same time as eating. What's the biggest effect that that has, and why is that
Yeah, so a lot of people when they eat, they're eating and they're
an
on
issue?
yeah, they're doing both. So their brain is so distracted on watching, like, YouTube or Instagram or whatever it is, that they're eating too fast. They're not being mindful of what they're doing. And that's one of the biggest issues. You're just eating too fast and you're pushing all this food in your throat, in your stomach, and then into your small intestine. And it's like, well, hold your horses. How about chew a little bit better? So the food could be so it could be broken down a little better in your stomach, and gut doesn't have to work as much.
Interesting. Okay, so it usually has to do with the speed of eating versus being connected. Okay, that makes sense. That's something that I just hadn't heard of before, but is very
Yes.
interesting.
Yes, it's huge. Just being mindful, taking your time on that. And I get it. Like, it's so many cool stuff on Instagram and all these platforms, but just taking your time, chew well, and support your digestive system so that way you can feel better and perform better.
Yeah, totally. That's very cool. What is one thing that you feel like not enough or that not enough people are eating? Like, what's a good thing that people aren't eating enough of, and what's one thing that you feel like people aren't eating or are eating too much, if that makes sense? Like, if there's one thing to
Yeah.
add to your diet, one thing to take away from a common diet, what would you
Yeah.
suggest?
What people need more of, it's going to be fiber. That's one of the things I'm preaching about day and night. More people need fiber. Even when I speak to GI doctors or even NPs that work with GI doctors, even when you look at the current research, like, there's younger people being having colon cancer. That's insane. And then if you look at how much fiber people are eating, it's low, right? So in my experience working with thousands of human beings, people are lucky if they're getting 8 to 10 grams a day. Research shows they're getting about maybe 10 to 12, which I highly doubt. It's usually about 8 to 10. So people need about 26 to 35, depending if you're male or female. So think about being a male needing about 36 and getting 8, and
Hmm.
that's not going to support a healthy microbiome because fiber serves as a prebiotic. So what do people need? More fiber, more fruits, vegetables, all that fun stuff. What should we be more mindful of? It's going to be protein. I'm a protein fan, by the way. I'm like, if you follow me, I'm always talking about protein and fiber together. But there can be such a thing as having too much protein, especially if you are currently dealing with digestive issues. It could really worsen those types of issues. So being careful with protein supplements, really going more with just basic one ingredient protein foods, adding fiber, pairing them together. That's a golden thing to do.
Interesting. Okay, that's an interesting perspective and something to look at. I know I've heard a lot, and I feel like those are the two buzzwords of increase protein and increase fiber, and so that makes sense. But I think I hear protein more often, and I think especially like with how easy it is to supplement protein,
Yeah,
it's and that's when you're being told that you need more and more protein. It's like, well, then I'll eat this protein shake, and it boosts your protein really quickly. So that's interesting to hear that it's having not quite the effect that I think people are expecting it to have.
it can. And there's some people that have a great gut and they can tolerate the protein and they're getting the benefits, and it's butterflies and rainbows. That's wonderful. But there's a good chunk of human beings that have no idea that their body's not utilizing the way they think they are, and they're actually overeating protein, and that can harm their gut.
Interesting. Very cool. What would be, so, based on some of your experiences and stuff, what are some of the differences or some of the changes, I guess, that people should make if they are starting to do more athletic, endeavors and starting to get into, maybe running marathons or things like that from eating, maybe they were eating healthy and, weight was okay, digestive system was okay. What are things that you would suggest people change if they're going to start doing more strenuous and, bigger activity?
Yeah, great question. I think start tracking what you're actually eating, your macros, how many carbs, how much
Okay.
protein, how much fat, and how is it connecting to your performance? So how is it connecting to the planned physical activity? If you're going to go run, right, you're going to need more carbs versus if you're going to do strength training, not as many. So starting to track, become aware of where you actually got at versus guessing. Oh, I think I'm doing this. No, no, no. Log what you're doing, be aware of it, connect your performance to the amount of carbs you're eating and adjust as needed, because once you find that good amount of carbs for your body, when you do all of your physical activity, more endurance type of things, you're going to see you're not going to be fatigued. You're going to feel good. I mean, it's not fun and butterflies and rainbows doing any of this, right? It's hard as heck, but
Yeah.
it's going to be a little bit less harder if you
Mhm.
feel your body appropriately.
Totally. That totally makes sense. For, one of the things that endurance athletes more and more are being pushed towards is more carbs while actually exercising. How, you having expertise in nutrition, things like that, how important do you feel like is, because when I was younger, when I was in high school, it was all about preloading carbs, right? So like I started on swim team, so it was all about having pasta dinner, the 2 nights before, and then that would, help the actual race. Granted, those are shorter. That's probably part of it. But for you, what would you suggest? Is preloading carbs beforehand more important, or actually taking in carbs while you're exercising? Is both important? Tell me your thoughts on that.
I feel from my, experience working with people and just even my own performance, pre-carb fueling is such a game changer. It really is a game changer. So usually for me, and if I'm working with an athlete, I'm like, okay, maybe 2 to maybe 3 days before, start to consider what are we doing with carbs? What's going on with them? What kind of carbs? Then during your performance, kind of measure how did I do with my pre-carbing? And if you didn't do a good job, take a little bit extra carbs with you. But if you did a really wonderful job, you may not need a ton, but just be prepared. But in short, both to me are very, very beneficial. I wouldn't have someone preload and not take carbs with them. There's no way. I'm like, take your carbs, be prepared, because you wouldn't want to have a 20-mile run and then you're like dead on mile 10. And
Yeah.
it's just because you didn't take carbs.
Hmm. Totally. That makes sense. Okay, cool. So it's a combination of both, focusing on both. That makes sense. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Okay, so I had a couple of things that I would love for your expertise on. So I'm going to ask you them. I'm going to give you a topic, and I'm going to ask you underrated or overrated based on how people are viewing it currently. Okay.
Okay.
So, for example, like a creatine supplement is one of the other buzzwords that people are saying right now. Do you feel like it's overhyped right now, underhyped, or you can also say properly hyped?
It's properly. I don't think it's going to be the biggest game changer. Like if you're trying to go crazy with your health routine, it's not going to be the, oh my gosh, this was it. It's just that little subtle thing. There's enough research in creatine that it's worth taking, but I feel a lot of people are taking so many supplements to where it wouldn't be my priority.
Interesting. So, in that case, then, what is a supplement that you would put above creatine?
Oh, I would say taking electrolytes fasting, take electrolytes fasting. That
Okay.
is huge to me. If I had to pick between creatine and that, because that's going to just get you set up nice and easy throughout the day. That proper hydration.
Okay, very interesting. That actually goes into the next one. I was going to ask about intermittent fasting and how important that is, or is it underrated or overrated?
I think it's a little bit of both because most people are fasting in the morning time. So they wake up and they don't eat their first meal till 11, 12 p.m., whatever it may be, which you reap a ton of benefits with that. But me being a gut specialist, seeing what it does to the gut microbiome, working with a ton of people with obesity, I find that when they fast at night, they reduce the calories, their gut microbiome is happy, and everything is, you reap the benefits of fasting. So for a regular person out on planet Earth, the night fasting is so key, especially if they're dealing with obesity.
Okay, interesting. So focusing more on having a cutoff at some point in the day that you're say, I'm not going to eat past this point,
Yes.
and that would be, earlier than if you were fasting in the morning, and then you would carry that over and have breakfast.
Yes, definitely. So usually my whole skeleton for people is wake up, especially for women, the first hour, breakfast, fuel your body with that protein and fiber, then
Mhm.
eat your three balanced meals and try to have a cutoff time for dinner. And after that, let your body fast, reap the benefits, let your gut rest, let it do its thing.
Mhm. How people generally end up, or is there a range of hours that people generally end up fasting if they do that method?
Usually 12, 14 if they're pushing it, but 12 to 14.
Interesting. Okay, that feels very reasonable because
Yeah.
I know there's some people that will go, kind of the 16 hours or things like that, and that feels like a lot.
Yeah, I agree. That's a hard one.
Very cool. Okay, interesting. Do you feel like so for or for athletes in general, people who are exercising, would you suggest changing their fasting if they're exercising in the morning versus the evening time?
Yeah, and that's where things can change a little bit if we're talking about athletes, because athletes are a whole breed of their own, right? They're already doing the workouts. They're mindful of these things. It's not the typical person that we're dealing with America that's obese. They're very, very different. So usually if I'm working with someone who is very, very mindful of physical activity and they're doing endurance activities, their meal pattern will look a little bit different because it's going to connect more with the time that they're working out and how they want to fuel. So
Sure.
theirs may look a little bit different. They might not be fasting as much as someone else, but they're doing a ton of other amazing things that they're still going to be very healthy.
Cool. Okay, that makes sense because that's something that as I've just experimented myself, I know like I thought about and I tried intermittent fasting for a little bit, but it was really hard for me getting up in the morning because that was generally the time that I would work out. And doing that workout effectively, either I would be underfueled or even after the fact, like not being able to take in protein after the fact, like it'd make it really hard to then make it the rest of the, time that I was
Yes,
fasting, and it was like, ugh, this is just
it's very hard for that. I think sometimes it's we have to put what is our priority. So for training for a marathon or an Ironman or doing any of those, like what's your priority? Do you want to perform better? Do you want to like what is your priority and focus on that there. Later when you're on like chill mode and you're not training as hard, then maybe you can go back to doing some fasting here and there. So it may change from month to month just based on what your training looks like.
interesting. Okay, cool. That makes a ton of sense. Okay. Okay, I have another underrated and overrated. You semi-answered this one, but I would still love, your thoughts on it. So, protein as a big focus, and especially people trying to get to, 1 gram of I think, it varies, but usually it's 1 gram of protein per goal body weight. Is that underrated or overrated, in your opinion?
Well, what's interesting with that, my method of determining how much protein someone needs is based on their lean body mass. So I'll have them do a DEXA, and if they have 150 pounds of lean body mass, then I'll match the protein. So 150 grams of
Okay.
protein for your lean body mass, not more, not less. Let's feed what you have, and maybe a little bit more depending if we're doing like a calorie surplus to gain some more muscle. We may do a little bit more, but it's going to be around the amount of lean body mass they have.
Interesting. Okay, so focused on lean body mass versus goal body weight, which I mean, it is probably within a couple of grams, here or there, but everyone's going to naturally have a little bit of fat. That's actually healthy.
Yes,
So
I know. Yeah, everyone needs a little bit of fat. Please have a little bit of fat. Yeah.
interesting. Okay, that makes sense. That seems like a smart way of doing it. So then rate doing something like a DEXA scan or a body composition scan. Is that underrated or overrated in your opinion?
for athletes, it may be underrated. For regular people, not it's not the biggest concern. They should be do. It's a hard to answer because I always think of where is my patient starting at? If there's someone that doesn't even know what protein is, then we're not worried. I need to teach you what protein is. But if we're talking about athletes, they're a whole breed of themselves to where they should be very mindful, especially if they have body goal composition. If they have body composition goals, then they should be doing the DEXA. So maybe it's underrated. They should do it more.
Okay, that makes sense. That's something I know endurance sports. Once you get to the pro level, I know it is focused on more for sure. I mean, everything's focused on more at the pro level. But, you know, for a lot of people that it's not specifically like bodybuilding or things like that. I know for me, I've never had, you know, an actual DEXA scan or anything like that. I've thought about body composition in the way that, because like, there's some, I've had coaches in the past and things like that. And I've had one coach who very specifically was like, be very wary of anyone who's like, just lose some weight and you'll, you know, do better athletically, right? He's like, it needs to be the right kind of weight that people lose, right? Because there's too many people and lots of situations, especially I think more so in female athletes than male athletes, but they'll lose too much weight and it is the lean body, you know, lean mass weight that they actually need in order to perform well, and then their performance will end up tanking. And so, you know, I've always been told because of that, no, you're improving your, you know, your lean body mass, right? Making that, sometimes it's increasing it, sometimes it's at least keeping it the same, you know, taking your percentage of fat down. So that's really interesting that you would suggest getting those scans more often.
Yeah, definitely, because it lets you become aware of where you're at. Even if, for example, like I use myself as an example. Normally, I'm doing mainly weight training in just regular type of cardiovascular, like running 5 miles a week. But training for my marathon right now, my big goal was I've worked a ton for my lean body mass. I do not want to lose it. I just want to at least maintain it during this, and I don't know what that would look like. So getting the DEXA scan every 3 months lets me know, okay, am I fueling properly? Am I maintaining my muscle? Where's the body fat? I'm not expecting crazy changes over that, but it lets you know if you're fueling appropriately. And if not, if you're losing your muscle, what can I do differently? Do I need to boost up that protein? Do I need to focus more on weight training? Maybe I've been skipping too much of the weight training. Maybe I haven't gone hard, but reassessing. So that way, when you're done with whatever training you're doing, you're at a comfortable place that you'll just move forward with the next whatever competition you're going to do.
Interesting. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Cool. Cool, cool. Okay. Okay, so another one, overrated or underrated iron supplements. Where does that sit on your thoughts?
Only if needed. Only if needed iron. Like if you have iron deficiency anemia or you need that for whatever medical condition, then yeah, for sure. If not, don't. There's like don't do
Sure.
it.
Yeah. No, the reason I ask is because I've heard a couple things recently, and maybe it's just the couple of instances I've heard, and it's not everyone, but there are some people that, like endurance athletes, can be dealing with iron deficiencies without knowing it. So anyway, so I was curious if there are thoughts or if that's more commonplace than I think people realize, but if it's really only needed, then you know that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that would be my recommendation because also if you're taking too much iron, it could also lead to gut issues. So we wouldn't want to overdo anything, to be honest. I think the biggest thing is if you're an athlete and you're concerned, just get your labs done because that's going to take away the guessing game. And even if you're doing something really intense, just do it like every 3 months.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Very cool. Are there common tests? So, you know, maybe a DEXA test, labs. Are there any other tests that you would suggest doing on a regular basis?
Yeah, just your yearly lab. So
Mm,
your CMP, your CBC, your hemoglobin A1C, do those annually. All those do, even if you're super healthy, you're working out a ton and you have a fantastic diet, do it,
Mm,
because I have worked with athletes, even healthier people, and I see abnormal labs. A lot of the times it's why is something looking odd? If I'm working with an athlete and they have pre-diabetes, why? Right?
hmm.
So we want to kind of dig in a little bit more into these. So no matter what health level you may be, always get these basic labs done at least once a year to make sure that you're on the right path. Don't guess, just test.
Totally. That makes sense. Yeah. And I mean, athletes in other ways, we test things like FTP, we test our running pace, we test there's all these things that we love testing, but I think there's some of those body things that sometimes we're for whatever reason because we're like, oh, we're healthy, and so it's interesting to hear that. It's like, yeah, you
Yes.
actually should get it tested in ways that gives you numbers.
Yes, please do. I'm telling you. And sometimes it's a shock for everyone, but it's better to know now than to guess, and then figure it out when you're like 50. And it's like, oh, I could have figured this out when I was 30.
Sure, that totally makes sense. Yeah. Is there an age that you feel like it's more important, like to start to focus on some of those things, right? So, I'm 26 right now. How much should that be a concern for me versus in 5 years or in 10 years? Should I be more focused on it now? Not that I would be less focused on it later, but should I be more focused on it than that I might be now? Or is that something that I really should ramp up as I start to age?
Start now. Like everyone, start as soon as you can do your annual test. You leave, you're after your 18, you move off of mom's house. Start then, even before. Like just start there. I see a ton of young people that are just absolutely shocked. For example, sometimes they have fatty liver and it's a super young person they would just never would have known. Start
Hmm.
now for sure. Don't assume anything because of age, especially now. There's a ton of young people that have really solid, healthy diets and so forth, but there's just something off in their body. And if you test sooner, you find out and you can be more proactive about it.
Interesting. Okay, very cool.
Yeah.
So, another question. Are there any diets? So, I know there's lots of kind of fad diets. There's vegan, there's vegetarian, which, similar. There's keto, there's all sorts of different things like that. Are there any that you generally think are others, or you would suggest people try or really steer away from?
I would not recommend the keto diet for sure. That's just, I have never had to recommend something like that. I've actually seen a lot of harm in just people trying to follow the keto diet. The best diet I would recommend would be like a Mediterranean based diet where it's low fat proteins, a ton of fruits and veggies, whole grains, all that fun stuff. That would be a key thing. And it kind of ties back to focusing on your protein fiber. But for athletes, it's that extra focus component of those carbs for fuel,
Mm-hmm.
right? So athletes, fruits, veggies, all that fun stuff, plus protein and a little bit of a bigger starch intake versus just a regular bob down the street that's not an athlete. Just focus on your protein and fiber. You probably don't need that much starch.
Interesting. Okay, that makes sense. And what are some of your favorite sources of starch? Like, I think when I hear starch, I think rice and potatoes and things like that. Is that what you would go to as well, or are there any others that I might be forgetting?
Sweet potatoes for sure. Regular potatoes, rice is pretty solid, especially if you're going to train for a long, like a marathon. Then the white rice will be it's just perfect. It's a classic. Otherwise, also beans, oats. Those are just daily rotations. Keep them coming.
Okay, very interesting. That's smart. That's very cool. Well, cool. Well, I would like to give you, are there any other or sorry, I'm probably going to do some of that. Anyways, are there any last words of expertise that you would share with people, parting words that people should really take away and go and try from this conversation?
Yes, please increase your fiber intake. Do not play with the fiber intake. It's a very serious thing. and listen to your body, especially as athletes. I know you guys are pushing your bodies and doing all these things and you want to perform. I get it, I do. But you have to let your body rest too. Listen to your body and increase that fiber.
That's awesome. I think that's brilliant. Thank you. Thank you. And we are going to have all of your socials linked, below this. It will probably be on YouTube and, any other places that we put this podcast. So we will have all of your socials linked so people can go follow you and keep learning from you. Is there anything who would be someone who would need your coaching specifically? Like, maybe they are feeling this or they're in this aspect of life. Who is someone that really should follow you and connect with you to possibly work with you?
Definitely, if you're having any type of digestive issues, taking medications like omeprazole, famotidine, anything like that, 100%. Getting your gut microbiome tested could be a game changer. Also, if you're dealing with hormonal shifts, if maybe you're in perimenopause for women, doing functional hormonal testing could be a game changer, especially if you're working on performance. Because if you don't have balanced hormones, performance it's gonna be hard. It's already hard again, but it is going to be tough. So get those things balanced. Reach out if you have any of those issues, because once you settle those, your performance will just be so good. So it'll be normal hard at that point.
That's awesome. I like that. Well, thank you so much and good luck on your marathon. When is the marathon that you're competing in?
It's in May. It's May 29th or 30th. They're still deciding, I think, Saturday or Sunday.
Sure. Very cool. Well, I'm excited to hear how it goes.
Thank you. I'm excited.
Awesome. All right. For joining today and for everyone listening, thank you. And I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. Have a good one, everyone.
Bye.